Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of the Leon County Humane Society Rescue Podcast. Today we're going to be discussing compassion fatigue in rescue and how the work we do affects people within rescue, some of our experiences. And my name is Katie Stryker. I am the Director of Advocacy and Community Education.
I'm Lisa Glenn. I'm the Executive Director.
My name's Amy Radar and I run the dog program.
I am Courtney Kendrick. I'm the Volunteer Coordinator.
April Ryder, Director of Operations.
Lynn Rahman, Financial Administrator.
Mars Carnes, CAT Program Coordinator.
So you may have heard a couple new voices in there. You've met Lynn on our previous podcast, but Mars is our new CAT Coordinator. Now we're going to go through and we're going to talk about how long we've been in rescue and why we got in. Myself personally, it's been like 6 years in rescue. And I got in because I have just a huge love for animals and I want to help, and I also want to educate people on, making animals be as happy as possible in their homes. So I saw a lot of people not really understanding cats and cat behavior, and I wanted to be able to help facilitate successful adoptions.
I was trying to do the math in my head, but this is Lisa, and I have been in rescue for over 20 years. I'm not sure exactly, both here with the Leon County Humane Society as well as an open intake animal shelter and low-cost spay neuter clinic. And why I got into it is just because I love animals.
My name's Amy Radar and I've been in rescue for about 25 years and I got into it for basically the same reason as you, Katie. I love animals. I grew up with animals. I wanted my children, I thought, when I had my kids, I wanted them to be very well-rounded and empathetic and love animals, and I just got in it and stayed.
This will be my 7th year in May, I think, but I didn't intend to get into this field, but life took me here and I'm happy to be here.
And this is April. I got into rescue having been recruited from a different type of nonprofit work, and prior to working in rescue, I fostered, I did a lot of TNR. I can't tell you how many animals I've picked up on the side of the road and either found their home or found a new home for them. But yeah, it was kind of by accident because this organization needed me. So that's how I got here.
I've been here for a grand 7 months, and basically because, like everyone else, I love animals, and if I didn't do it now, when would I do it? It is my dream to make a difference in their lives, no matter how I can do it, and to work and learn from this wonderful group of people.
I got into rescue as of 3-4 weeks ago, but I did have previous experience as a veterinary technician for the last 4 to 5 years. Started fostering and kind of fell in love with the idea of being able to help those in need find their loving forever homes. I have previous experience probably dating back to high school when I started with cats and kittens, and ultimately that is where it led me to now.
So all of us got into rescue with the hope that we want to do good, right? Everybody wanted to be able to save more animals, to help, to use your skills, and be able to say at the end of the day, I was able to make these animals' lives better. What we're talking about today is compassion fatigue, because a lot of people get into it that way, and it's not just rescue workers. You're probably familiar, if you're listening to this podcast, to the Not One More Vet movement. It's a movement to raise awareness to the struggles vets go through because they have a very difficult job working with animals, often facing euthanasias, and there is a high suicide rate for veterinarians. But the Not One More Vet movement doesn't tend to address how those same issues affect other people in that field, including vet techs. Mars, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that your work as a vet tech was emotionally stressful and can be draining. And also, animal shelter workers in general actually have a higher rate of suicide than veterinarians. Not that it's a contest. It's definitely not. But I just think that one of the goals of this podcast and this conversation is drawing attention to the fact that, yes, that issue exists. We should all be aware of it, but we should be aware of how widespread that is and what's causing it. Again, not to put you on the spot, Mars, but with your backgrounds, you want to talk a little bit about your time as a vet tech and how it affected you emotionally and what some of the things that you saw in that field were.
Being a veterinary technician is certainly not for the weak heart or mind. Every day always beheld something different. There were a lot of times where I often did not know what I was walking into. There were times where I would do 2 or 3 euthanasias back to back and then walk into a different room with a new puppy or kitten and had to spend a lot of time learning how to mask my emotions, put everything aside, and put a smile on my face for a lot of those folks who, obviously don't deserve to know what I was facing previously. Ultimately, it was a really big decision for me to leave veterinary medicine, mostly for my mental and physical health, mostly my mental, if I'm being entirely honest. Like I said, you just don't know. I mean, you see everything from feeling for the owners that potentially can't afford different surgical options or can't afford medical management and have to opt for euthanasia rather than being able to treat something, or going from cases of neglect, abuse, things of that nature that are awful to witness and just kind of going through the motions with that. Ultimately, honestly, burnout is probably the reason why I started looking into other jobs and looking into other situations that I could utilize as a career rather than continuing in the field. Unfortunately, not everyone is kind in veterinary medicine, and that kind of adds to the burden as well, which is really, really difficult for not just technicians, but everybody from receptionists to anybody else in between that works in veterinary medicine. It can be really challenging.
And just to sort of expand, I probably should have done this first, but if we're going to define compassion fatigue versus burnout and all of that, compassion fatigue is sort of, it's very close to secondary trauma. So like you said, you're encountering all of these people that are having some of the worst days of their lives, if not the worst day so far. And you're sort of absorbing that and taking that with you and carrying those feelings forward, and they are very heavy. So compassion fatigue is when it starts to get so heavy, all of the things that you've seen and witnessed, that it starts to affect your ability to absorb all of those emotions. You start off, you get in, I'm sure when you started, you were super excited to be working with animals every day.
Oh, definitely.
But then it becomes too much. You sort of start to feel irritable. You start to withdraw. You're not able to give as much of yourself to that. And then the burnout starts, where you just don't even want to be going to work, even though it used to be your favorite thing.
The best way I could probably explain burnout is you kind of become this sponge, so to speak. And once a sponge has too much water in it, there's not much else it can absorb, and then you have that break. And that ultimately you kind of, with rescue and veterinary medicine, you are that person or that client's sponge. And that's ultimately where you kind of get stuck in this rinse and repeat of, being an overfilled sponge and not.
And I picked on Mars because you're new to us and you just left the veterinary field, but Lisa and Amy actually met at Animal Aid. And I can't even imagine how difficult that must be in terms of compassion fatigue. Do you want, Lisa, you can start, but do you want to talk a little bit about your time there and your time at the shelter even? Because it's all different types of work. It's all animal rescue work, but it's all under that same umbrella.
Yeah, I actually think not to say funny, I'm looking for the right word, but when you said you left veterinary medicine for your mental health, I wanted to be like, whoa, well, be prepared, honey.
Different though.
But I think wherever you go in this field, there's going to be challenges, and I've said it, I think, to everybody at this table numerous times. There are times where I find even working in the rescue field is more difficult than working at the shelter, where euthanasia is a daily reality. And I think when I went into this originally, I always wanted to make a difference. Initially I wanted to do animal law, and then I wasn't smart enough for those law classes. I loved my experience at Animal Aid because while it was trying and there was definitely an emotional toll, you learn so much so quickly, and you learn in an atmosphere where it's kind of sink or swim. And a lot of the tools and knowledge I think that I took from there, I still use to this day, and it's even helped in even working with other veterinary clinics. So I think there's a good takeaway in all those things, but there's also a harm that's done to your heart and your mind in every little aspect, and I'm sure Amy's gone through that as well. So I don't know that I've mastered handling all that, and which is why I'm excited that we're doing this talk. But I don't know that there really is a way. I think you need a good, strong support team, and I think just, you know, at different times you're just going to need different levels of ways to deal.
Mars and I were actually just talking yesterday about how this group is really good at, talk about a support group. I think that we do a really good job of looking out for one another. But I don't want to get off of animal aid quite yet and your background in shelter and vet med. Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about how it's different from what you do now and what challenges you face then versus now and how they weigh on you?
Sure. I think in animal welfare, if you do get to the point that you handle it like super well, I feel like it's, when I've seen people do that, it's time to get out because they've desensitized themselves and they don't have that ability. So I just wanted to speak on that too because it's such an emotional roller coaster. You've got to feel like you have to, because if you don't, then you won't have the empathy and the caring that you need. Animal aid for me was the same for Lisa. Like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard because you see the worst of the worst sometimes, but you also see the best of the best. And I learned a lot, and that was many years ago we worked there. And I learned lessons that I still apply to my rescue today. I will say that one of the most important things I've learned in the 25 years that I've been there, and was probably the hardest thing for me to apply, was set boundaries. And I think a lot of people have a hard problem with that, and that's where I think some rescuers go from rescue to hoarders, that they never master, and I don't know that I have completely, but they can't master setting those boundaries. And that takes an emotional toll on you if you don't. And you actually get to the point, I think, where you have to, because you're at that point where you sink or swim. However, I will say one of the best pieces of advice I ever had was also a really big learning thing for me, was taught to me by Margot. Sorry.
She's starting.
It's important to feel.
It is. One of the things she said to me, I will never forget this. We had a really bad case, and it was very upsetting to me, and it still is, 15 years later? But she said, she called me out of the room because she seen I was getting very upset with the people. And she said, it's not about you. It's about that animal.
I think one of the things that's difficult, because when I was, for this podcast, researching compassion fatigue, is so many different careers have compassion fatigue, and a lot of them are people-based. It's like therapists interacting with their people, absorbing people's emotions, but animal rescue is sort of unique because we're not just absorbing those people and their experiences and their reactions, but we're absorbing the animals.
Yeah.
So we have two separate sort of, I don't want to say client, but clients that we are catering to in rescue. And we're providing support for people, but we're also looking out for the best interest of the animals. And that, it's like a double whammy because
it is.
You don't want to be cruel to people, but sometimes they are unknowingly even being cruel to animals, and then you want to step in for the animal and you have to balance that. So that is definitely like a unique part of animal rescue work and animal vet work that other careers just don't see.
Yep, it's very hard, and it is emotional, but I do want to finish. So that day she said, it's not about you. It's about getting done what that animal needs us to do. So she said, put your feelings aside, as hard as it is. Put those people aside, and let's do what's best for that animal. And I have always kept that in the back of my mind. And when I have to make those hard decisions, whether it's when it involves the animal and the people, I've always listened and remembered her voice telling me, not about you.
You gotta do what's best for the animals.
True.
And then just to give Amy a break, because poor Amy, we have to go back to like certain moments that stick out to us in certain cases that we worked that sort of keep us going. And somebody asked me this week for just like an interview. We get college kids and people coming in all the time wanting to know. And the question I got asked this week that stuck out to me was, which part of the mission statement drives the work that you do? What do you think is the most important? And I thought that was really interesting, and it got me thinking for a long time. I ended up choosing education, but I wanted to go through and see, we'll start with Courtney because we just made Amy and Lisa and everybody talk, but what part of our mission statement, the rescue, rehabilitate, or educate?
I think if you know me, you'll know I'm going to choose rehabilitate. I think that's my favorite part of the job, and I think even through the volunteers, showing the volunteers how to rehabilitate and watching them experience the same emotions that I experience when we see successful rehabilitation has been fulfilling to me. So that's my answer.
April?
I remember when we questioned putting the word rehabilitate into our mission statement. It was something that we were at that point trying to develop a more aligned mission statement with our actual purpose in the community. And I remember the word rehabilitate was questioned by other rescues as to whether or not it was even possible. And that was 10 years ago, but I'm glad to say that I agree, it is my favorite part of this, because I think it's something we do it's not just enough to take them in, it's not just enough to find them a new home, it's not just enough to tell the whole community that they need to do better, but we actually get to make a real difference in the lives of the individual animals that we touch, and rehabilitation is at the heart of it.
And just because now seems like a really good moment for me to bring it up,
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the reasons rehabilitate is so important to you is probably Zach. Do you want to talk about Zach for a
Oh
minute?
gosh, Zach. Yeah, I mean, every one of my animals has a sob story, unfortunately, but Zach was one of them. Zach came to us out of a fighting ring. It was a bust in another county over, where feds were involved. It was a big story. He came to our program after having, stayed out a period of time waiting for that trial to go and get resolved to the point that the animals could be released. And he went into another foster home. It wasn't my foster home to begin with. About 3 months, I think 4 months after having been in that foster home, he needed another foster. They could no longer care for him, and he came to a dog wash, and he was just going to stay at the building overnight. And I took him home because I couldn't bear to see him stay there overnight. Long story short, he became our dog, but he had every ailment, including a lot of trauma that was left over after having spent a life on the end of a chain. He would eat things that weren't food. So he's had, I think, 2 surgeries to remove, is it 2 or 3 now? I can't even remember. I think maybe we're at 3. To remove objects that did not belong in his body that he ingested. But then also, he's had a lot of scares, a lot of issues with that. His body rejected a lot of the foods that we started feeding him, so he had horrible allergies, probably, or what we believe as a result of poor nutrition to begin with. And then also having been exposed to the elements for so long. Of course, he was heartworm positive when he got to us. He had a lot of skin conditions. There were a lot of things going on with that guy. But now I can't believe it, he's 7. And I've had him now 5 years. It feels like yesterday, but he was a big reason for us to start taking on kind of some of the harder fosters, and then eventually adopting another animal. It was also a pretty difficult one. We're like, this is no problem, and now we're adopting a cat pretty soon here that also has the same allergies. So when you do it well, why not keep doing it, right?
When the shoe fits.
And then, Lynn, I know that you're very new, but I think that by now you probably have a favorite part: rescue, rehabilitate, or educate.
Although I think all 3 are incredibly needed, and one feeds into another. You can't rehabilitate if you can't rescue and educate. My job allows me to educate because, as you know, I take the crazy phone calls that come in and aren't directed at anyone else, and interesting phone calls and sad phone calls and any other kind of phone call that happens. So for me, education, I educate those and I learn so much. But I think from a personal experience with you folks in 7 months, it would be rescue, because I rescued a little fur baby that didn't need so much rehabilitation, but she did need rescuing. And my husband and I couldn't be happier to be foster fails, and we wear that proudly. So I guess at this stage of the game, ask me in 10 years. It might be different, but.
And I'm sure you'll have a different answer throughout your time. I think, like, for me, it ebbs and flows. It's been rescue at times, it's been rehabilitate at times, and right now it happens to be educate. I think I have to be biased. It's in my job title. But I also think that educate comforts me, and it's one of the only ways that I'm able to, like, feel control when, like, something horrible is happening to an animal. I can take that situation and I can say, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen to another animal? Or how can I make sure that people know that this is happening so that maybe in the future it will be common knowledge and we can move past this part. Maybe there will be fewer animals that need rescuing and rehabilitating if I do the education now. That being said, Lynn does an incredible job with those difficult phone calls. I'm going to play one for you now, just so that you're able to hear some of the phone calls and some of the messages that we receive.
Y'all are about worthless as can be. Y'all just need to be totally shut down because you offer no services whatsoever for taxpayers.
So that's just one kind of phone call that we get. That one's actually pretty nice. It doesn't have any profanity, but at least we had that recorded. We don't always have them recorded, but this was a few months ago. Doesn't mean that we don't get these phone calls and interactions every day. In fact, Courtney had one just today, if you want to tell.
Yeah, I had a lady who was I think she just got frustrated with me. She wanted to bring a cat from here to Alabama for somebody she knew, but the more questions I asked, the more frustrated she got. And so I gave her my card. I told her I need an application before we can do anything else. And as she was leaving, before she slammed the door, she said, "Y'all are fucking dumb." And that was it.
I think it would be silly to say this podcast isn't PG-13. I mean, you can give it to someone.
I had to hear it, so.
You didn't ask.
Our jobs are not PG-13. I get all sorts of words lumped in my direction all the time. But
yeah,
I
think one of the reasons I'm so appreciative and have so much admiration for the fact that Lynn has been doing a lot of our phone calls and taking those messages is because I simply can't do it. I hate phone calls. I hate how brave people are when they're not face to face with me, even though sometimes when they are face to face, they're pretty brave too. It drives me sort of crazy. It burns me out really quickly. It exhausts me. It winds me up and, like, makes me into someone I do not like. I don't know how you do it. I bow down. And it's one of the reasons this year we instituted a call tree. And I get people, when they do get through, they listen to the whole tree, they go through, they click the buttons, and they get someone. And the first thing they do is let me know how angry they are that they had to click a few buttons before they got to a person. April, you might know this. How many phone calls do we get a day, like on average? Or
hundreds
of phone calls from people.
The phone rings about 100 to 150 times per day if we let it ring, right? And it used to be for years and years and years, we would just pick up those phones all day long throughout our day, and it would really throw off we would never be able to plan for anything, which I know we can get into, but
we wouldn't be able to get anything done. And those phone calls could be anything from, "Are you guys there? Can I come get pet food?" "Yes, our hours, you can come get pet food, I promise." But that's still, you have to stop what you're doing, you have to stop what you're working on, you have to put it down, you have to answer the phone, you have to give that information to a horrible story, a very long and horrible story about their current animal, and how they need it to be taken in. And even then, from that phone call, unless you're getting the cat or dog coordinator, we just have to say, please hold. I'll put you through to Amy Court.
I had somebody calling back when we were all answering the phones. Thank goodness Lynn's taking that up for us. But she was very convinced that we were the city's humane services for humans. And I had to be like, this is the Humane Society for Animals. And she's like, no, this is the number for humane services. And it was just like, this is taking a chunk of my day to have to explain to you that you have the wrong number. And I'm so sorry for your situation.
Yes, but for you to get screamed, it's a drain. It's a huge drain, and it's not even a fair one.
And it's fun. I'm just going to throw this out there. Katie, I will not have an email argument with someone. I cannot stand to reply to the emails. And I know you're so good at it. And I was like, I literally would say, just send all the phone calls to me. I'll be happy to call them all back and hear whatever it is that they have to say and work through their problem or work through their need. But the writing an email back to something that is a very long, either coherent or incoherent case, I have no patience for. So thank you. I always think about how Katie would answer this. You know?
I will hand Katie the keyboard and be like, I need you to draft something for me, so I'm not going to be nice.
I think it's got to be like something about being an auditory visual or like, I don't prefer to communicate that way. My phone will ring and it could be my mother, who I love and adore and miss. But if my phone rings and it's her, I'm like, why? Just text me, I swear. There's just something about it where I just really prefer to not talk. I can't even schedule like doctor's appointments. I need to take a nap after. So I don't know how you do it. I think emailing
it's the other, it's just, I'll be the other shoe.
Yeah. I'd rather talk on the phone. I don't want you to text me. I mean, texting is okay, but I hate emails.
I've accepted that with you though. I just know. I'll text Amy and I'll be like, 5, 4, 3, 2, yes.
A lot of times I'm driving and I'm like, I can't text you.
That's kind of what it is. I'm like,
if I don't do it right then I'll forget. And it'll be 2 days later. I'm like, dang, I forgot to.
Yeah, if you ever want to really be stressed out, honestly, I should just take a video of Amy's phone. Just
I thought you were going to say Amy's driving.
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to go there.
We could take bets on how many times it's going to ring it.
Because I'm compassion fatigued.
No, but I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and going back to that, before we had the phone system where it would have all the answers that people are seeking available right there for them 24 hours a day, the questions that they would normally ask of us are completely answered by the phone system, right? Before that, it was just constant phone calls and constant being pulled in different directions. You would have a hard time getting anything you tried to accomplish that day done.
Oh, impossible.
It was, you would get derailed at all different turns. But now we can finish a thought, we can finish a conversation with someone, we can finish a job that we were working on, and then come back to answering the questions as soon as possible. And they're getting better care from us, I think. I think people are getting more response, more appropriate answers. They're not getting referred out as much. I think we're able to one-stop some of these concerns.
Instead of getting through a phone call, we are dedicating time to that phone call.
Exactly.
We are having that conversation on purpose, not trying to get done with it so that we can move on to what we were already working on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot better, personally, but I don't think it's going to stop the rude voicemails, but that's okay. I was thinking today about just one of the backwards things about this job, about how my favorite part is educating people and how my least favorite part is ignorant people. So, and like, you can't have one without the other. And I should be thrilled whenever I meet somebody that needs to learn and be educated, but instead it's always a struggle. I'd love to go around and have everybody say their favorite and their least favorite, because I just want to know if it's that same sort of thing, where you can't have one without the other. Lisa?
We're still on the least, what are we?
We are past y'all are about as useless as can be. the one after that. Did you want to go back to something?
I was confused by that. My least.
Oh, you're so right.
No,
What is your-
that was why I was just stuck
I'm
on that.
confused.
So I got distracted and I didn't give Lisa a chance.
Yes, we need to do that. We need to go back.
How are you gonna crop all this out?
I'm not. This is. I mean, I'll do my best.
Okay. We'll skip that part now.
Actually, wait. I can remember back to
Favorite part. We went from phone tree.
phone tree.
Let's just go on
No.
favorite and
Least.
now I know what we're talking about. I'm just totally thrown off.
It sounds like you have an answer. I want to know what your favorite part of the mission is.
The mission 100% was educate. I'm same lines as you, and the reason being because I've always been hopeful that with educating people that we would not need to be here. Like the glory day is one day when we're not needed.
How many jobs do you think are out there where that's the goal, is for your job to no longer exist anymore?
Every nonprofit.
Really care.
Every nonprofit that exists.
Yeah.
But education, like even when April's talking about Zach, her dog Zach, I remember exactly why he was returned. I don't know if you remember why he was returned, but he went into a foster home. He was returned within days because an extended family member saw a picture of him, realized their family member was fostering a big pit bull, and he was brought back that day because even though he was great and he was running around with the kids in the family around the pool and he had shown absolutely no aggression toward anybody in the home, because of what he was, they called during one of our busiest dog washes of the season and said, this dog cannot stay here. And you took him that day.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't either remember that part or know that
I
part.
remember that because I was burning inside. I still am burning inside over it. But that's why education is so important to me, is because with education, I see less rescue one day in a happier world. I see less need for rehabilitation and everything you were saying, Katie, really lined up with where I went with that.
When April was talking about Zach and his story, when she finished, I wanted to chime in and say, by the way, he lives with multiple dogs and multiple cats. And the taboo or the thought is that, dogs from a fight ring. And don't get me wrong, I've done a lot of them over the years. A lot of them cannot live with other dogs, but that should never, or cats, but that should not ever be a blanket statement, because there's always exceptions to the rule.
And that person that made that call too and decided it was not right for that dog to be in the home, he is in the animal field, and that's one of those things that just burns about me, and that dog is an awesome dog.
You know what's fun? We did his DNA. He's 100% American Bulldog. He's not he's purebred. I'm using air quotes, right?
But he's a big bully with a giant head, and he's got a look that people still today are fearful of.
The biggest softie in the world.
You didn't do the mission either.
Lisa's keeping track.
I am. Let's keep on it.
Only because I would say rescue, because I've taken so many animals out of those bad situations. To me, it feels good to do that. I chose that purely from a selfish standpoint, but I agree with what Lisa says, is I would love to one day be put out of a job and, have to go work at a 7-Eleven or something.
There's a difference between what's most important and what's our favorite. I can see how that's your favorite. There's nothing better than a freedom ride.
It's amazing when it's like looking in a rearview mirror, and you got that animal. You're like, it only gets better from here.
See, that's amazing, because I agree. It depends. My favorite is rescue, but the one that's needed most, I agree with all you other ladies, is education. And when I first started, April said, "Put us out of business." She made that comment in a story. I wish people would put us out of business, and I use it now all the time when I talk to people about what I do, and I love it. And I said it to someone on the phone just the other day. I said, we are waiting for the day we can be put out of business.
Yeah, but when the last animals helped, we will shut our doors.
And it's actually like
You'll have a
some of us
party.
do it better than others too, like educate better than others. So like that's not my strong point, and I know that about myself. I'm okay with it. My strong point is the rescue and then the rehabilitation. So.
Mars, do you have a favorite out of the three?
Out of the three right now, it probably ultimately goes to education. I'm kind of pulling a little bit more from my experience as a technician rather than rescue, since this is kind of a new world to me. My job for the last few years was educating people, whether that be medical conditions or, things that they would have to look for long-term. Client education is so important. And it is super important for rescue. I mean, if we don't talk about things and we don't educate people, how else would we function? How else would they know the cause of what we are ultimately aiming for? So I definitely pick education as of now, but revisit in about 3 months and it might change.
There are moments where I want to educate, but I just need to get the, I think back a few months ago, this girl walked in, arms all the way out, holding a kitten, just dangling there. And she was like, this kitten's mean. I don't want it anymore.
I was there.
So I'm sure you remember the look on my face, Amy.
Yeah.
That was a great opportunity to educate that I did not take. I just needed to get the animal out of her arms and into somewhere safe, because when I started saying, well, if you do this and this and this, she started to walk out the door and said, I'm just going to go somewhere else. And you're just going to go somewhere else with a cat dangling from your hands. Not a safe way to transport a cat. I'm hoping everyone listening already knows that. Little education for you. It's very easy for them to get free. They don't feel safe. They're probably going to scratch you. It's going to put them in a situation where they're going to feel like they want to bite. That was one of those moments where, yes, I believe education is so important. Rescue beat out education in that moment for me. Not because the cat was in any immediate danger, but because I knew if it walked out the door, might not make it through the day. So, not always great at educating.
Then I would look at it on the other side of the coin and say, thank you for bringing that cat in, that kitten in, because it sounds like from her attitude, she easily could have just said, I'm just going to let it go.
But it haunts me a little bit thinking about that person could get another pet. That person could get another cat. She just found her in her apartment complex and taken it in. And it wasn't what she expected, so she didn't want it anymore. But
it wasn't a mean cat, by the way.
It was not a mean
But
cat.
maybe all cats are mean now and she won't ever own one.
That was my hope.
Exactly.
Next time, leave her with that little tidbit. Jump in again.
That was...
You don't like them, they're spicy.
Yeah, they're spicy.
She just couldn't handle the heat.
So I don't know if that moment is a sign of compassion fatigue or if it's just a difficult situation. Do you have any... We'll skip my favorite versus my least favorite part. And do you have any moments like that in your head where you're like, I wish I had handled that differently. If I had had a different day, would I have approached this better? Because honestly, moments like those kind of haunt me. I'm like, I should have done more. I should have settled.
I have moments where I wish I would have spoken up more, even when I'm not being heard. I hate not being heard. I try my hardest to communicate with people, especially face to face, and especially when it's somebody who I feel should be on our side, who knows what we do. I feel more regret for things that I wish I would have said. But I'm very good at, I think, minding my P's and Q's most of the time. I try to, it's hard for me to take that filter off and to learn. Even in here, I wanted so bad to do this podcast, but it's hard to even take the filter off in here because you know that you have people that are at any time judging these words and you never want the organization to be judged for something. But I so often want to just give people a wake-up call and say, you're doing a disservice in this way to this animal or to animals in general. But I don't know, I always feel like people just for some reason, educate, so many people just aren't there yet. So I can't think of a moment like that where I'm even like comfortable sharing those yet. But I hope one day, I do share those at times with individuals where I just need to get it off my chest, walk away and breathe, and you guys have seen those.
Yeah.
Well, I think like April does an incredible job on the phone, and she thinks I do great with emails. Lisa in person is
Right.
forced to be reckoned with.
Yes.
She has so much patience and grace, and she sticks to the exact point she wants to make. She is so kind to people. You really are. I've never seen you talk to somebody and walked away and been like, whoa, what's up with Lisa today?
But then I walk into one of the offices and I lose my mind, and then I have to be.
It's okay, you're in a
I have
safe
to get it
space.
together again. And
You do such a good job. If it means anything, you are incredible with in-person, especially difficult in-person interactions. I admire how you handle them so much, and I hope someday I am able to have those interactions that way.
I think we all do have those. Just
Oh no, I'm always happy when
I appreciate the vent.
I'm somehow I've shooken someone up by telling them the truth, and then Lisa will hear it's happened, and she'll come and come over the shoulder and, how can I help?
I don't feel like I usually if I hear it,
By the time,
the alarm bells ring, I don't feel like I.
yeah,
I don't think it comes in.
on
It's
me before
like,
they'll,
get out of her face.
Yeah.
You need to be gone.
yeah, they'll
Because people don't realize how abusive people can be when, and I know every business has to deal with that, but I think people feel entitled to walk on, especially I think a lot of nonprofits go through that, you know, people feel entitled to come in and just press what they want and they don't take no for an answer. And it's not okay. It's not okay for people to treat others like that, especially when you're asking for something.
They would be the first people upset if you came into their place of business and told them how to do something. You'd be like, well, who are you? Like, I mean, not to say that we all can't learn something, but if you ladies in particular are the experts at what you do. And I agree with what Katie said, Lisa, you are amazing. And I'm always in awe with April on the phone and every one of you. I've seen what you do and I learn from it, and I aspire to be just a part of what you all do.
Not to jump on the Lisa congratulatory bandwagon, but to kind of build on what everybody's saying about Lisa, initially, I know that there was a lot of things kind of at play before Lisa was willing to take me on as a cat coordinator. I held on to hope for the longest time because not only have I always looked up to you, just kind of the examples that everybody else has given, I see the same thing. Even working with the rescue as a technician, there was always so many things that I saw or overheard you talking to fosters and different things like that really pushed me to want to start in rescue, because ultimately my goal was I want to be Lisa. And I want to do the same things that Lisa's doing. And I want to get to that point to where I could step into Lisa's shoes, see what she's going through, and kind of see what I can do myself. It kind of brought that out of me, and it took me out of the place that teching, kind of put me in. I don't think I've ever walked into a new job feeling happy and confident at the end of every day, and knowing that I have not only Lisa as a great support system, but everybody here as a whole, which ultimately has changed a lot of my perspective on a lot of different things related to the animal rescue world. Tune in a few months from now, I might have a different opinion. Not about Lisa, maybe about rescue. However, here's to holding on to that hope that Lisa gave me in the initial.
Thank you. We got a good solid team. So I'm very happy about that.
Very off topic, but wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you.
No, it speaks volumes to the support side of the topic. The fact that we do rely on each other to, help each other with our whether it be our frustrations or our limitations, or, we have somebody to give us feedback whenever we need it. We can call, like basically phone a friend and be like, hey, whatever it is I've tried, it's not working. Can I get the team in on this? There are ways that we support each other. And that really does go back to helping keep us from getting fatigued over the day in and day out.
I did make everyone for this podcast fill out a professional quality of life worksheet, just to sort of gauge on where everyone was at and see how we were doing in terms of compassion fatigue and burnout. And I will say that this worksheet asks you to focus on the last 30 days. So we've had ups and downs, but the last 30 days and where we are right now and what we just talked about, I think is why none of us scored as being burnt out or in like any deep stage of compassion fatigue. And I think it is genuinely because of who we have on our team and Lisa as our leader. And it's nice to be able to see things always getting better and to know that things could be worse.
I think it's a lot of it is circumstance and situational too, because if we were talking earlier, if we would have done this 6 months ago, I think my numbers would have been a lot different.
Yes, last summer was challenging. I think we would have scored high instead of moderate across the board. I will say, Lynn, you were low still. You're still doing good.
Still loving it.
And Mars also had like super high satisfaction, moderate burnout, which I think is still carrying over.
Residual.
But we're all in a good place right now, which is really nice to be able to say. And I know that a lot of people in this field aren't able to say that right now. So I'm very appreciative of where I work and to be able to do what I do without suffering.
And I think that does speak to the people at this table, because we go through the same thing any other nonprofit, whether it's people-driven or animal-driven, the same ups and downs and conditions and things like that. But it's the fact that it is such a small team and you get so much done, and we're able to help so many, educate the people, rescue, rehabilitate the animals, and see them in their good forever loving homes. And that the personalities here and the support and understanding is so important. And it's in abundance here.
And I don't really want to skip to the end, but I feel like we've covered a lot of wonderful things, and I want to make sure that we end on a good note. So I want to go around and have each of us share a recent example where we know that we made a difference in the life of an individual or in an animal. Who would like to go first?
We're all looking at me. Okay.
It's a hard question.
Just the last 2 weeks, I've had, as you know, we have a pet food pantry, and we have people that are recipients of our pet food assistance. And sometimes those people will come to us for years because, for one reason or another, they need the support, ongoing support for us to help them with pet food. And sometimes those people will be relatively new to us. And someone that was kind of a once in a while person reached out to me in an emergency about 2 weeks ago about going into the hospital, and she didn't have any care for her dog. She doesn't have family in the community or a lot of support. So the struggle with all of that is that, although she has done everything right for this dog all these years, the dog is aging. They're both aging. They're both dealing with a lot of the same physical limitations. And she just cannot see what we see, which is the dog is deteriorating. So long story short, we are still in progress of trying to help her. But, she moved heaven and earth to get back home to this animal, even in spite of her own well-being and her own care, which the subject of this is compassion fatigue. By all means, definitely take care of your animal, but to what expense? Is it at your own expense that you're, not taking care of what you need to take care of in order to be there for your animal? So it shook me up in a lot of ways. I'm very proud of the fact that we have this connection with her, But in spite of everything we've offered, she still will not sever the tie with this dog. And it just kind of, I guess as a humane society, we have these constant struggles of like ideal versus reality. We want people to have this connection to their animal. We want them to be bonded for life. And then we're coming to the end of life of an animal and we're having to battle that bond in a lot of ways and question that bond. It's just that duplicity has been difficult for me, but also very, very eye-opening.
Oh, I mean, that checks all the boxes of putting you at high risk of compassion fatigue. I mean, watching that happen, dealing with that, managing her emotions and your emotions and seeing the dog in that state, that is a great recipe for compassion fatigue. And I know that it's been weighing on you.
But I immediately, as soon as I knew it was like, this is bigger than I can deal with, I immediately called and was like, phone a friend, everybody help me, April's not getting the point across, But yeah, it has been difficult, but at the same time,
you are helping.
I think we are. I think we are. I think we're helping to open her eyes a little bit to it. I think we're helping with the day-to-day of, that dog having someone to take care of when we've made connections with the neighbors. We're getting her support in a lot of ways there, but she still is not making herself a priority, which is, you're working for a nonprofit animal rescue and doing social work in a way, which is really not where you expect to find yourself when you're going into animal rescue. But I would venture to say that this is just as much about people as it is about animals, what we do.
One thing I will say that I've learned also in the years I've been doing this is when you do when you do educate people, it's not always the fact that they're not always going to have that light bulb aha moment. But if you can just plant one seed of something, who knows? Like I've had people come back years later and they're like, you remember you told me this, I did this and it turned out great. So like you just hope that they may not be ready to hear what you have to say, but if you can plant a seed, then maybe they'll think about it later. Mm-hmm. So that's all we can hope for, really. So maybe we planted seeds in this with this.
We're gardening. we are nurturing this relationship, and I think everyone will benefit from it in the end. But it's just, what a crazy thing, just from one phone call to this, and having this connected dynamic with a person for so long. It's not what every nonprofit is capable of dealing with or sets out to do. So
rehabilitate, but on the human level.
Yeah.
I'll go. This is sort of not the example of a difference you made in an individual, but I wanted to share. I have a bottle baby kitten right now, and that bottle baby was part of an emergency spay, and all of the other kittens in that spay were not viable. And I got that kitten, and he had his 1-week birthday yesterday, but none of that. That's not why I'm telling the story. I'm telling the story because on Saturday, I was working a booth for Tally Cat Cafe at Pride Fest, and a girl came up to me and she found out I was with LCHS, and she was like, "Oh, we just sent you guys a kitten, and I had to work for, so long trying to resuscitate this kitten, and I didn't think he was going to make it, and we were doing everything that we could at the clinic, just hoping he would survive, and we sent him over to you guys." And I was like, that is my bottle baby. I have him. And we both started tearing and crying up. And I showed her a recent video of him yawning and stretching that's on our social media. And she was like, I just can't believe that he is alive and that you have him and that's him right there and he's doing so good. And we hugged, and it was just like one of those moments where you're able to connect with somebody who is in sort of the same boat, but you are both, taking buckets of water and throwing them out of the boat on different ends, and you don't even meet each other. And that was kind of special to me. And it's like that whole team and network working together to be able to accomplish that. And sometimes, I would never have met her otherwise. She would have handed off the kitten and not known what happened to him. And it was just really nice to see, not quite full circle, but at least she knows that he's okay and doing well right now.
It's a hospital connection. Yeah. I don't have an example directly, but I do have I guess feeding off of Amy and April both and what they just said, I have now seen 20 years of Amy dropping those little seeds of knowledge, those little tidbits of education into people from all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of circumstances. And it's like an art being able to fast forward years and be able to see that maybe at the time they were not ready for that knowledge, but fast forward a couple of years and you can see them playing it out and you can see they weren't ready yet, but it's still set in there. But where I would like to see change, watching April over the last 2 weeks, with this family, this woman and this dog, those are the type of things that I think we do. Maybe not that exact case, but those are the things that we do well when we do them. And there's such a great need for it. People don't realize that there's a huge gap where you've got people who love their animals just like any of us do, and they've taken wonderful care of their animals, and there's a huge gap in affordable vet care where people make choices between feeding themselves or feeding their pets or getting their pet to a vet clinic to seek care. I mean, even transportation-wise, we have people in this community that call us and say, my animal is sick, I have no money, and I can't get it there. And oftentimes when you ask them, these animals have been with them years, they're fixed, they're taken care of otherwise, but they hit hard times, and especially our senior population. So many of them are in these kind of circumstances, and I really want the Leon County Humane Society to be that hub where people can go to find that assistance. And one of my takeaways from Amway years ago, there was a gentleman who, he was homeless. He had some mental illness issues. He was an older man, but he had a dog that he took, this guy, the dachshund, he took great care of that dog.
The basket.
Yes. And this gentleman, when his dog needed anything, right on down to monthly heartworm prevention, he had a bicycle in his basket. His dachshund would ride with him in that bicycle. He would panhandle. He would do what he needed to do. He picked up odd jobs just to take care of his dog. His dog was his life. And, they lived the streets together, but he took better care of his dog than people that I know that are in the better parts of town. So, those are the type of people that, while I don't, I can't think of one right now that I'm helping, those are the type of people I want us to be able to help more.
And I think I just want to say, because Lisa won't say it, I think that she can't think of an example because those sorts of people and those needs are weighing on her so much. And I know that she can't say right now, I've made a difference for these people, but I've seen all of her notes on her desk stuck to everything. Lisa has been applying for grants and trying to be able to fill that gap and help those people because they are weighing on her so much. So they're trying. You're going to.
And to build on that, and Lisa, and I answer the phones, I hear a lot of stories, and I don't think I necessarily do anything, but through this organization, I hear the relief when people are calling me and they're desperate to feed their animal, to get a bed, to get treats, toys, kitty litter, just a host of things. And when I tell them, we can help you. And I hear the relief in their voices because it has weighed so much on them. And in what Lisa was saying, that they'll do practically anything. And then also the spay and neuter vouchers that we offer. And they're so happy to get, we recommend Animal Aid is a good place to go that's economical for you. And you have the spay or neuter voucher and you can give them a call and we'll help you and explain it. They're looking for answers, and they're so relieved and happy when they get them and when it can actually help them. And I'm excited for what we talked about at our retreat for the future of how we would like to help the community, and how Lisa and Katie, you mentioned it a little earlier, is working on getting grants just so we can do more to reach out and help the community. And that's the great side of answering phones and being able to help them.
Courtney, do you want a softball of a difference in the life of an animal you've made recently? Because I can throw you one.
I was actually going to steal yours, but
Oh.
I can't think of one. What's your softball?
I was going to say Bubba and Magnus because I mean it wasn't easy, but you did help them step into it.
It's so hard for me to feel like matching people with cats is me helping because I feel like I'm helping the cats more than the people.
Okay, it says difference in the life of an animal or.
I guess. I don't know.
You do both.
Animal first.
Yeah, and those people are obsessed with their cats. So.
I do like matching people with cats because people come in with different expectations with what they want sometimes. Like, I have somebody who's like, I want somebody that's 2 to 4 months old and calm. And I'm like, where again. Dated. What was that? So we had this couple, we have a couple of cats that we have had for a year now at the cat cafe. And I feel like there's a lot of judgment with that too. Like, I've recently received judgment of like, why you had them for a year? Why haven't you moved them? It's like, well, I have the luxury of holding them in my cafe because we do have space and I have no issues with adopting cats. I probably do about 5 adoptions a week, at least. And I'm more than happy to hold on to somebody until they have a secured forever home that I know they won't bounce back, because that's a whole thing, is if they bounce back, then I have to rehabilitate them again. And I don't want to do that. That's really depressing. So we had this couple that was super obsessed with these 2 boys that we've had for a year, and they were having issues getting their immigration status secured. They're trying to move here from Germany. I think the husband's in, but the wife was still working on hers, and things are getting bogged down right now. But I said, hey, you know what? Let's do foster to adopt. If you end up not making it here and this doesn't work out, just bring them back. It'll be a 1-month break for us. So now they're fostering them, and hopefully we'll be adopting them in a month. We'll see. But they're super happy. The boys are out. They're happy, and that felt pretty good. So
It's a talent. It's what you do. Because like you said, you don't want anyone can get someone to take an animal if they're wanting an animal.
Yes.
It's not hard sell.
It's so easy to give an animal away.
Yes. But you really care so deeply on both sides, but of course the animal first. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to see them get situated in a home only to be ripped out of it and have to, rehabilitate, as you said, that animal, because they don't understand why they got given back.
I think
that's such a great talent.
Thank you.
It's your superpower.
Yeah, I think with the whole, my favorite part of the job, my least favorite part of the job prompt, my favorite part is rehabilitating. My least favorite is getting animals that I need to rehabilitate. And it's like, I love doing it, but gosh, that's so sad when they are surrendered and they're crying their eyes out for a whole day and the owners are mad at me because they're in a kennel and I'm like, I don't know what you expected to happen today, but this is what's happening. Yeah. So
I wanted to add too that you wouldn't put them in that situation where they might have to come back if things do fall through if those 2 cats weren't so resilient.
Oh yeah, they're the most confident things. They could walk into any room and own the place, and I knew if they came back in a month, they'd be fine. So
that's the other thing, is if you do have to do an adoption that you're not confident with, you at least make sure that cat isn't going to suffer. Like, you guide them towards a resilient cat that is able to sort of go through.
Somebody that's maybe done it before. I've had a couple of cats that bounce back to us before, and I know that they can handle being surrendered, so I'll take chances on those ones instead.
Can I hop in there?
Yes.
Courtney, I know that I said this in at least one of the other podcasts, but looking ahead to this year, that's you working so closely with the CAT program is really one of the things that has me so optimistic about moving forward and all the good things we're going to do, because this chick rocks and rolls adoptions, but not just pushing them out, not the, clear the kennels, get them out. Like, she is so good at learning the cats, learning the adopters, and matchmaking. And, Magnus and Boba, you even said in there, even if it doesn't work, it's a break for us. Those were not easy cats.
They weren't. And
they had big personalities. They were troublemakers. I heard stories. I remember Katie coming in one day like,
they do it too.
But you're really good at that matchmaking. And even this morning, Ian, who's a newer cat to us, but one I expected us to have for a while because he came in with the shelter transfer we recently did. He was one of the shyest ones. super, super, super sweet, but he's that cat that gets overwhelmed in a room and he'll run under the kennel. And to hear that he was adopted this morning, it was like, what?
He was the first one too.
You came around the corner and I was like, who again? Are you sure you're telling me it's not like a different cat in that room? Because he was the last one I expected to be adopted so quickly.
It's just taking the time to learn the animal, learn the people, and just immediately seeing the light bulb go off. Like, that's exciting to me, and honestly, hard to keep up at times because I'm like, dang, like, let's keep fielding the calls, getting the cats in because they're moving out quickly and freeing up space. So you're doing really, really good at that. Making a big difference.
And for dogs and cats, everyone that you send to a home, you're creating like a lot of the time a forever connection with that person. Like that person is always interested in the work that you're doing because you gave them their best friend now. And I think that
I did have a return adopter this week who adopted a few months ago. We did a match make, and then she's just like, I think I want to start fostering. And I was like, okay, get you on the foster orientation. And then she found a cat. She's like, I think I just want to adopt this cat now. Okay,
It happens.
sounds good.
But that is growing the team, the team of animal lovers and spreading the good word and getting more animals into good homes. So.
And I think I'm used to seeing Amy do it because Amy does it so well with the dogs. And the difference is she learns her fosters really well. She learns the dogs, and a foster Amy can have a conversation with the person that walks in the door, and right off the top of her head, she's like, she'll write down a number, she'll say, fill out the application, and she'll say, I want you to contact this person. I think they have the perfect dog for you. I've seen it on the dog end, and that's a bigger picture because it also encompasses the fosters, but I haven't seen the cats move along so well in years because of taking the time
to get to know
learn
them.
the two things.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have someone dedicated necessarily to getting to know them. That person was spent. They also had to divide their time among all the other requirements of the CAT program. So this division of labor is probably going to make a big difference in the way that we get adoptions done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate
And
that.
talent. Talent is the biggest part of it too, because it's not just labor, it's what you're good at and what you enjoy doing.
Well, it's like Lynn said, anyone can get them out. I can put a cat in anyone's hand and they'll be like, thank you, and head out.
I would have given a cat to go to Alabama today.
Yeah. What good would it
And then you got
And I would have slept tonight.
or slam.
Yeah, exactly.
So I appreciate Courtney for the fact that I know this sounds crazy, but Sailor has a spot in my heart. And although Sailor doesn't love me like I love Sailor, she does love Courtney like I want her to love me because Courtney understands her and makes her happy. So that makes me happy.
Just gotta
So-
coddle her.
It is a bit of an abusive relationship.
It is.
Because I see Sailor sitting on your lap, and Sailor is our office cat, just in case nobody's aware of her. But I have seen Sailor sitting on your lap, and when you're like, it's almost like trying to barter with her to get up and and not get a little love slap.
I have to have a spare chair and be like, okay, how about this chair?
Because oftentimes I can hear the party mix container opening for my office, and it happens more often than what you think.
I'm not doing it too much, but yeah, she's ran out of her party mix. I actually have to.
Yeah, we had a little
Don't worry,
emergency today because
We had a party mix.
A party mix emergency.
Refills under the cabinet.
Okay.
We'll get more.
I found out she's got preferences in flavors. She does not like the cheesy party mix,
Ew.
and she likes the gravy more than the original now.
Nice.
but she really only wants the original.
You've made her a better coworker.
I like the damage control that you do with a lot of us, especially me. You're like, that's just Sailor. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
The volunteers that you block, shield.
I blocked her from a dog today. It was a little scary, but
The one
I
that
got
was
there.
getting the microchip scan.
Scary for the dog.
Scary for the dog. He had no idea what was happening. He was like, "Oh hi."
Well, it looked
And I watched
instinctual.
it.
Yeah, you literally were right there, right before it connected with that poor dog.
And the fact that you know the flavors that she likes goes right into learning the cats.
Yep.
Well, I think that is a great note to end on. Sailor is always a great note to end on.
She is up for adoption.
She is on adoption. Please visit our website.
I will write you a handbook.
We will walk you through it. She'll hold your hand. You'll only get slapped a few times, I promise. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please adopt Sailor. Thank you.